Now, our upcoming speaker, Ruby Ibarra, is a rapper and spoken word artist. Now, she's from the Bay Area of California, and she released her debut album, Circa 91, at the end of 2017. Since then, she's toured all across the United States at universities, empowerment conferences, music venues, and spaces like the National Mall in DC, the Getty Center, and the DeYoung Museum. Now, Ruby has been featured on notable publications such as NPR, Huffington Post, South China Morning Post, BuzzFeed, XXL Magazine, and was featured in a Grammys and MasterCard commercial and campaign with R&B singer SZA. Now, Ruby's music is available on all digital platforms and can be heard in several museum exhibits, films, and television features. We're so excited to have Ruby join us on the stage with our own amazing Hunter Canning. Now, Hunter is a New York-based actor, puppeteer, producer, and photographer. As a conscious citizen of the world, Hunter's ethos is bringing people together throughout all facets of life, be it producing live performances downtown, creating corporate recruitment content, or photographing portraiture, red carpets, and live events. Hunter has a passion for bringing people together to foster growth, kindness, and a true understanding of each other. I cannot wait to listen to this conversation. I'm super excited to start streaming Ruby's music once we're done, but I'm going to turn the floor over to you all. Ruby and Hunter, take it away.
Thank you so much, Meg, and welcome, Ruby. It's an honor to have you here. Thank you for making the time. You're calling from California. It's bright and early. How you doing?
Good morning from California, Hunter. Thank you so much. I really am just so happy to be part of this talk today. I think that we're going to be talking about some important things in our conversation. And thank you, Meg, for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you could talk about, we're gonna jump in about your with your intro there. You're this recording artist, you're part of all of these amazing different projects, but I want to turn the clock back, if we could go back in time for a moment. And you have a background in biotech, which is not what maybe some people might expect after hearing that intro, So what was that journey from studying biotech, and then unexpectedly, did that set you up to be an artist, and were you always drawn to music?
Absolutely. Thank you for that great question. I know when people hear that, I had a full-time job as a scientist outside of my music career, people are often very surprised, as, it's not something that they'd expect. And I think when we look at it kind of, very quickly or at face value, it seems like two very opposite careers that are polarizing. Like, how can she be a scientist and an artist at the same time? And to answer your question, I actually got into the arts first before I realized that I was very fascinated with the subject of the sciences. And to hop into that kind of time machine into my life, I was first introduced in hip hop when I was around 4 years old. This was before my family and I migrated to the US from the Philippines. And coming from a very not only musical background, culturally, but also from my family, I remember growing up, I saw music all around me, whether it was my cousins being part of a band, my mom picking up a guitar every time we'd have people come over. I felt like every single person in my family had the inborn innate talent to sing. And I was like, I wish I had that. How come I don't know how to sing? And eventually, obviously I picked up different ways to be able to express myself through poetry and rap. But yeah, I just wanted to share that story to show and highlight that music was normalized for me at a young age. And I think I'm very grateful that I saw that all around me. I understand that for a lot of artists, especially those I think that often come from Filipino or Asian American backgrounds, that it's quite the opposite of that. Where for me, I saw it so frequently that I never thought that, pursuing a path in music was impossible or was not the norm. And so as I grew up and as we moved to the US from the Philippines, I just became more and more enamored, with music and specifically hip hop. I think especially us moving to the Bay Area specifically, out of all, the towns in the US, here was this community where back in the 90s, this was the time where artists like Tupac, Ice Cube, West Coast rap music was thriving. Like this was the golden age era of hip hop. And I was just very fortunate to have, grown up and saw that as a young child and be able to absorb that kind of music. And I remember being in elementary school. I think I was specifically in the third grade, and my teacher decided to pop in, a video to kind of show us an example outside of our curriculum where, I think we were studying the sciences at that time. And this person on this video was Bill Nye the Science Guy. And I just remember, like, I think my mind was blown. I was like, he's talking about he's making science sound cool, but at the same time, he's using like the same cadence and, rhymes that my favorite hip hop artists, were using. And I was like, this is hip hop and science all together. And I was like, whoosh, like, this is perfect. I'm absolutely in love with this. And I think, that truly was my entryway into becoming fascinated with science. And from there, I just grew up as a very curious kid, constantly asking my mom questions like, why does this work this way? How come this happens when these two come together? And I remember it was always science that gave me the answers to these kind of questions that I had. And eventually, as I got into high school and I had to decide on a major as I applied for college, I think at that point in my life, it was just a no-brainer that I would want to major in the sciences. And I eventually got into majoring biochemistry and molecular biology. And that led me to becoming a scientist in the biotech field. And actually, up until last year was when I still had my full-time job as a scientist. But this past year, I've been very blessed to be able to transition into becoming a full-time artist to solely focus on my craft.
Wow, Ruby, there is so much amazing stuff in there. Thank you for sharing this. You took me on a journey. You took us all on a journey here. We went back with Bill Nye the Science Guy, who I love. And I love that is your in to like, oh, here's two things I love, like poetry, cadence, and science. And I have to say, like, I love that when you started saying, oh, science and music, like a lot of people probably like, how does that go together? And I imagine though that they're both creative endeavors in a way, right? Like you're investigating something, you're looking to discover something, right? I live in New York City, and a couple weeks ago I was walking down the street and there's this dad with his little kid, and I overheard just a little snippet. When you hear those little gems over snippets of a conversation, and I heard the dad say, because this made me think of your parents. He's like, you don't need to worry about asking a question, honey. Every question or every great discovery started with a question.
Absolutely.
And
that's right.
Right. And like, you're on this journey, you have supportive family members to like help you discover what this journey is for your creativity and however that shows up for you with science and with music. And so with the music then, like, can you talk about, I'm curious on two parts here. Well, I'm very curious, but with two parts I'm going to focus on with the creation of the beats and the music themselves. Like, is that like a scientific endeavor for you? Is there some similarities there? And then also I'd love to start talking about the lyrics and the impact because they're very, especially because you mentioned you come with poetry and spoken word and talking about the greats from the 90s that came out of the Bay Area and before. Like, what takeaway do you want, or what impact do you want to have with your language?
Those are two very great questions as well. To answer the first part, I think that I have gained, or I was able to use a certain skill set. I think that I ended up finding along the way through, majoring in science and eventually working in the field, because I think of the technicality and, like you said, like the kind of investigative research that comes with it. And so I definitely apply those kinds of skills when it comes to doing the music production or even writing the lyrics. For the folks that are familiar with my music, especially, I think pre-circa 91 when I was releasing mixtapes. And I used to be, or I still am actually, a very technical rapper. When I approach my lyrics, I think it's the fact that I grew up listening to a very, certain, era of hip hop, a very particular era of hip hop in the 90s, where you had artists like Tribe Called Quest and Wu-Tang, where they were very technical with their lyrics. They used a lot of literary devices in the writings, and I think I'm definitely the same way when it comes to my approach in the lyricism and the writing. That yes, I have a story to tell. Yes, I have a message that I want to deliver. But at the same time, I think that the way the words are written, there's definitely also an intentionality that comes with it about using certain words, using a certain language, using certain literary devices like metaphors and imagery. I'm very, I think, intentional about the work that I do in all aspects of it. And to answer the second part of your question about what I hope to accomplish in the lyrics and in the message that I'm trying to deliver, I think ultimately the impact that I want to create is just to share who I am. When I first found my voice as a hip hop artist, I realized that my favorite artists growing up, such as Lauryn Hill, and even more contemporary artists to this day, such as J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar, I think what makes them so special is the fact that they have a story to tell and they have a very unique voice. And early on in my career, I made it a point in making sure that if someone picks up a piece of my music, if they put headphones on and they listen to my album, from the first track up until the end, I want to make sure that whoever is the person on that receiving end feels like they lived my life, or feels like they have a better understanding of who I am. Because I feel like when we hear music or we consume art that is very personal, that is very raw and full of human emotion and experience, though that's the kind of music and art that stays with us, because we can find pieces and there's a running thread that I think we can relate to and identify with. And ultimately, that's what I hope to accomplish with my music, is to make sure that not only does the person listening to my music have a better understanding of who I am and who I am beyond as an artist, but also to find some kind of commonalities, within my work and their life. And I think that is when we can create impactful work, is when we are able to create these kinds of connections and relate to people.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And just truly, and thank you for, what you're doing is you're sharing yourself, which is a very vulnerable, courageous act. And I'm curious, I was very resonate with when you're talking about this, the universal experience, being able to listen to music, no matter who you are. And I'm curious if, because you're going into detail about letting us know who you are with your specific story, what is it for you with, being a part of, the Asian community? You mentioned you immigrated from the Philippines at an early age, and how that influences your work now. And is there a hope that you connect with that community in a particular way or a particular person? Have you gotten stories? Have people reached out to you? Tell me about this journey.
That's a very good question as well. And especially as, we're here in May 2022 celebrating AAPI Heritage Month. It's never lost on me that even though I feel like, whatever poem, whatever rap it is that I want to write about, if I set off tomorrow and I was like, you know what, I'm going to completely change my style and I'm only going to write this kind of music, this kind of genre, and I'm going to really have a departure from the previous project. I feel like I still wouldn't be able to, or it would be kind of doing my community a disservice, and at the same time doing myself a disservice, if I don't recognize that whatever it is I set to do and how I do it, that at the end of the day, I am still, representing a certain community, whether that be the Asian American community or the Filipino American community. And I think about that all the time. And that's why, as I mentioned earlier, I try to be as much as possible, always intentional about my work, whether it's the collaborations that I do, the kind of activations that I do with certain companies or organizations, or of course, the topics and I talk about in my lyrics. I want to make sure that what I'm doing is not only satisfying for me, but also going to start a conversation, a larger conversation for my community. And that's why, for example, on my debut album, Circa 91, I decided that, that the overarching theme of that album was going to be my experience, because if I talk about who I am, and I talk about what I know, that is, again, what people can relate to. And also, to answer your question, I know that, we're in a time now where we're seeing a lot more representation in the media for Asian Americans. And it's great. We're seeing, the rise of K-pop globally on a large scale. We're seeing a lot more Asian American faces on TV and film. But it's also not lost on me that we're still seeing a lot of Asian American hate, a lot of Asian American violence all across the country. And to me, that's very telling of the fact that a lot of these important conversations still need to be had, and that, representation on a screen is not going to solve a lot of the problems that we need to work through. And there's still a lot of dialogue and work that needs to happen on the ground. And so for me, when I think about representation, it's not just about who's in front of the camera, but who's also writing the stories. Who are the folks behind the camera? Who are the people making the decisions? Who are the people making change in their communities? And so for me, it's important that, that this isn't just going to be about music, that this is going to be a larger conversation, and to bring it back to your question. And that's why it's important for me to make sure that I'm intentional about the things that I talk about in my music, because at the end of the day, I understand it's not just music. The fact that we're seeing more Asian Americans in media is beyond media. It's making history. And this is a moment for the Asian American community to kind of re-author and rewrite our stories.
Yeah, and it's just incredible to hear your experience here, and you're talking about the work that to be done. There's a lot there's progress happening. We've also seen a horrific rise in violence in the past couple of years, and these things are happening simultaneously. And so I would love to hear about, you're talking about there's work to be done. So talk to me about, you have a scholarship program. So it sounds like you're, not just writing lyrics and being a part of television shows, which we'll get to as well, but you're also helping people, you're setting the elevator down. And can you talk to me about that and what's it about and where that came from for you?
So back in 2018, I had the opportunity to co-found this amazing, wonderful scholarship program called Pinay's Rising with Dr. Allison Tintianco Cobales, who is an ethnic studies professor at San Francisco State University. I helped took on that project because I felt that I was at a point in my career where I wanted to give back to the community. I thought that, okay, I've been so blessed to have these opportunities to be on tour, to be part of these collaborations, to be on platforms and stages. And I realized and recognized that I had these opportunities because I was propped up by my community. I was standing on the shoulders of the people who supported me. And I thought to myself, how else can I give back, the help that I've received outside of music, outside of just performing? And I thought, what better way to do that than to tie it back to education? For me growing up, education was always a large part of my life. As I mentioned earlier, being introduced to Bill Nye in school, if it wasn't for moments like that, I wouldn't have been able to pursue the careers that I have now. And I remember, growing up, especially from a 1.5 generation immigrant household, it was always taught to me and my sister from our mother that we needed to go to school, that we needed to get that degree, and it was important for us to not only personally to have a degree, but also thinking about education as a tool. Getting that degree, getting that job, getting those opportunities to be able to receive those resources, to bring back those tools to help to bring it back to our community and help the people in our community. And, so for me, I thought, let's do the scholarship. And we co-founded it in 2018. And since then, we've just continued to have more and more amazing applicants every year. And I just want to note that the scholarship is going to be open again this year. We'll be opening up submissions in the next 2 months or so. And so with this program, we give out $500 financial aid scholarships to self-identifying Filipina American students who are pursuing higher education, whether it's an undergrad, graduate school, or getting their master's and so forth, but are also involved in activism, community work, or are pursuing the arts. Tying in, kind of the work that I do, and also my co-founder, Dr. Alison Tintiang Cocobales, with her passion in activism in the arts as well. And, again, continuing to think of the arts as a tool to not only showcase and highlight and share our stories and our culture, but also as a tool to politicize our communities and to make sure that we're knowledgeable and educated about what's going on socially, politically, and culturally. And so for me, this has been such an amazing project to be able to bring it back to our folks, and especially to inspire the next generation, to pursue the arts, to use it as a resource and as a tool. And it's just been so incredible, Hunter, to be able to see these students every year. Some of them who previously received a scholarship, to see their graduation photos throughout the years and to see them accomplish their dreams. That to me is the ultimate reward.
Oh my gosh, absolutely incredible. If you, for those, I love hearing too, thank you so much for sharing this. And if you are curious about, I believe it's panayrising.org, correct? That's the website that folks can go to check it out.
Yes, panaysrising.org. That's PINAYSRISING.org.
Great. You go there, first thing you'll see is just an amazing photograph of all of these young folks there. It's just so inspiring. So if this is something you're looking for when the scholarship is open, please do apply for it. And also, can people, where are the funds coming from? Can people donate to these things? Is there something else you'd like people to donate to?
I'm glad that you mentioned that. So we're actually accepting donations throughout the year. If y'all check out panaysrising.org, there is also a page, a tab there on the website where folks can choose to donate. And we've received donations throughout the years. We've been able to fund the scholarship program just through word of mouth from our local community members. A lot of them actually being educators, professors across the nation from different universities who've given back to the very same students that they teach. And so it's also inspiring from that end to see the multitude of people who've been so graciously helpful and been down to support the cause and been down to also help aid these students in being able to fund their education. Because I think at the end of the day, students should just be able to receive their education without having to worry about, how do I pay for my books? How do I pay for my tuition? If we can at least, at the very least, sort of relieve that kind of stress or those questions, and let the students just pursue what they want to pursue and receive their education. I think that is at least some sort of help.
Absolutely. I mean, it's heartbreaking that so many people that want to learn are not able to because they don't have access to the resources. That it's a gift to be able to open a laptop. It's a luxury to be able to even have a book to get the information that you need. So thank you for creating this. and getting the word out. I love to, and I'm curious, we've talked a lot about, we touched on how the past couple of years, there's been so much going on, right? Where this rise in representation, rise in violence, but also those are the big things on a micro level. For you personally, Ruby, you've been like on a rocket ship, right? You were like, a couple of years ago, you were just, doing your science, which is an amazing pursuit on its own. And then suddenly you get on a path that you're passionate about, and you're on a shooting star. So what is that like for you, Ruby, when you have, it's clear you're showing up and you're helping others, which is amazing, but like, how do you put all that together when you're just like, there's all of these crazy things going on in the world, and you're giving back, and your life has completely shifted in a huge way? How do you feel?
I definitely miss sleep. No, I'm just kidding. For the folks that are tuned in, don't forget to sleep. Self-care.
There's no substitution for sleep.
There's no substitution for sleep. I think I just first I take it a day at a time, and I'm the type of person, Hunter, who loves to put so much on my plate. And
I get that about you, Ruby. I really do.
I'm like, there's still a little bit of space here. What else can I do today? No,
I have about 5 minutes. Let me go save something.
5 minutes goes a long way.
True. It's amazing what you can do in 5 minutes.
For me, it's just, I think, realizing and remembering why I do what I do. And I want to share that because I hope that, that's applicable to a lot of the folks that are tuned in right now who are juggling a lot of hats. It's not lost on me that what I do may not be so unique as we think. It might not be as rare as we think. I know so many people out there do have to wear, multiple hats, do have to carry on multiple responsibilities throughout the day, whether it's going to school and having a job at the same time. And so I think asking myself, checking in on myself and taking care of my mental health have been, very important. Knowing when to rest and actually carving out that space to rest, whether that rest means as easy as sleep, or that rest means kind of, tuning everything out and meditating and just focusing on myself. I think, we lead so many different busy lives, and we have goals from point A to point Z that sometimes we forget that we give. We forget that sometimes we've given so much that there's nothing left for ourselves. And I want to make sure that, we also point that out in this conversation, that it's great, to work. It's great to collaborate. It's great to inspire, but it's also important for us to remember healing for ourselves, to remember rest and self-care and protecting our mental health, because we can't do the work that we do if we don't protect and take care of ourselves. Then we won't have any energy and anything left from ourselves to give. And for me, it's just remembering and asking myself why I do what I do. And that always gives me the answer that I do this for myself and I do this for my community. And that inspires me to keep going.
Oh, that's incredible. And it's such good advice. And thank you for letting us in on that. We only have just 1 minute left. I want to touch on The Cleaning Lady, which is incredible that you contributed to this TV show. You just, maybe give a little snippet about it, and then let us know how people can stay connected with you. As we mentioned, all of Ruby's music is available on all of the digital platforms. Just open up any tab on your computer and there you can find Ruby.
Thank you, Hunter. For the folks that aren't familiar with The Cleaning Lady, I had the opportunity to be a songwriter and do the music for season 1 of The Cleaning Lady, which, by the way, is still streaming on Hulu. If y'all missed it, it premiered on the Fox network. And the great news is that they've renewed for season 2, and this is an incredible show. Because it features a Cambodian Filipino American family, which I think is the first time on a primetime TV network that they've had this kind of story on TV. And I just want to say happy AAPI Heritage Month. For more of my music and work, please follow me on social media at Ruby Ibarra. That's RUBYIBARRA.
Ruby, thank you so much for making the time today. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you for being you.
Thank you, Hunter. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
Bye now.